Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Tuesday. Hey, Tom.
How are you, Bob?
I'm good. I got a little shirt issue that I'm just noticing, but that's okay. My collar's too big. You know, I have a small neck, big head, small neck, so the collar doesn't work.
After 289 or 90 episodes, you're worried about what you're wearing or how you look?
That's it. You got it. You understand me all too well. But hey, my team won last night. Baylor won.
Yes.
That means I won some brackets.
Yeah, I lost mine. It's interesting. I was in one of the pools, which is a good pool. You contributed $5 for every bracket you put in, and whatever you won, you have to give to the favorite charity.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
Yeah. And somebody and I mean, there are only like 30 of us in this group, and somebody and I picked the exact same bracket, literally, except for last night's game. They had Baylor and I had Gonzaga, and so I lost. They won. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it happens.
It is.
So let's get to our topic, because picking teams is like making decisions, Tom's, right? And this week we're talking about making decisions. And we're also, before that though, why don't I tell people, look at me totally taking charge. Why don't I tell people about a couple of upcoming events, because they're really great. You want to make sure you don't miss them. So pop that screen up there, Tom, and I'll go at it. Here we go. It's the Renegade Roundup Networking Events, Tuesday, April 13th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, or you can do it Thursday, April 22nd at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, or you could get crazy and go to both. And then the real exciting one, right smack dab in the middle there and in the middle of the week, is every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Get together with us on a Facebook room, and we're going to talk about where you are with the week and what you're still trying to achieve and how we can support you. It's a great way to really take stock and advance things really powerfully for the second part of your week. So you want to make sure you mark your calendars for all three of those events.
What was that? What went into making the decision you're going to read that and do that as fast as you possibly, well, not as fast as you can, but very fast, quickly.
I just wanted to get through it because I feel like it takes some time. So I figured I'd try the fast version. I'll listen to it today and see if it worked better.
Yeah.
Not feeling it, huh?
Well, I don't know. You sounded like some of those used car
That's what I was going
commercials.
for. I was going for used car commercial.
All right. I think you hit it. So
okay.
Kudos.
Thank you.
So today, folks, we are continuing our conversation all week about decisions. And yesterday we talked about how do you consider them, or what are the scenarios that you put yourself through, or how you help others as they consider decisions that they have. Today we're going to talk about how do you make a decision. And I think there's, it's the logical next step for once you've considered them that you actually do have to, I guess you don't have to, but I think that is also a decision, right? You can choose making the decision to not make a decision, which is getting me all wrapped around my head. And how do we then make our decision? So while I start to put my head around that you make a decision by not making a decision, and that's making a decision, why don't you give some thoughts about making decisions, Bob?
Well, Tom, and I think this is one of the things that you and I do with a lot of people, and it's something that we have really helped each other with over the last 10 years. How many times do you and I get together and talk about stuff and have to make decisions? Some were big career decisions. Some were smaller decisions, like whether I should use my rower each day and that process. But we're constantly confronted with the need to make decisions. And I think that's one of the things, and it's funny, someone said to me a couple months ago, when I worked for a company, I never had to make big decisions. I was like, what do you mean? I mean, this guy had a budget. He had a budget like a couple $1,000,000. And I'm like, you make big decisions all the time. I mean, you were stroking checks for big amounts of money and authorizing this and travel and all. He's like, yeah, but it didn't matter. I wasn't responsible. And I think that's something to think about. It is, well, when you're insulated by an organization, I don't think you think about it. Like, when I run my business and I write a check for $100, that's a lot more money than when I would turn in a requisition form for $100 at a full-time job. It just didn't resonate because that $100 is literally coming out of my pocket now. And I think sometimes we get paralyzed by that, oh, this is all on me. What if I make the wrong decision? What if I lose that $100? What if I lose $1,000? What if I do the wrong marketing campaign? What if I should have been on Instagram, but instead I went to Twitter? All those things seem to creep up on us. And we also, I think, struggle from the idea that everyone else makes great decisions and we're the only person struggling. I mean, I've had that thought before. I'm like, boy, it's so easy for this person to make decisions. What's interesting to me now is I've gotten to know this one person who makes very quick, decisive decisions. And I've learned that he works a lot harder at it than he lets on. I've been behind the wall and it's like, this isn't as easy as it looks. And I think that's part of it. But also, Tom, we tend to, when we're making decisions, we think of two choices, do or don't do. I think you have a great scenario here you were sharing with me earlier today that kind of fits into this.
Well, I think that, when I was talking with a client the other day, and I've had a couple of clients like this where they're just trying to figure out what they should do and how to do it. And they don't see all the different options. They see a couple of them in front of them. And, again, the opportunity to have someone else help you explore that there are other options out there. This person was looking at it and they saw two ways. And the more we talked about it, there were a couple of other ways that things could have gone the way they wanted to. And I think, so often we feel like we're limited in making decisions, that there's only one or two options, as you said, do or don't do it. And I think so often that there are other options to consider. We just don't take the time, or even if we take the time and do all the considering we talked about yesterday, we just don't have a broad enough scope to really understand what might happen. And I think sometimes that's, it's interesting. I had a lacrosse game yesterday. And what I find is that the closer I am to a play, sometimes the harder it is to really understand and make a decision about what to call, if anything, because you only see what's in your immediate vision. And I think that's what happens so much with all of us is that when we have to make a decision, we are in close and we know all of the little things here, but there's so much else going on over here that we can't consider. And what I found in lacrosse is if I back away a little bit, I'm able to get a broader perspective and I see other things happening that are going to influence the play, which will influence my call. And I think that's what happened, with this client that you mentioned, is that they were in here and really thinking about the immediate future. They weren't considering, well, okay, what is the bigger picture? What is the longer term plan? And while, yes, this in here decision may make sense for today, because that's all we've considered, but they didn't think about what might it mean 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 7 years down the road. And will this decision today help them get to where they want to ultimately be? Or will this decision today slow their pace towards where they really want to be? And instead of getting there in 3 years, it takes them 7 years to get there because they have moved off in a different direction, not really considering, where it is that they ultimately want to get to. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the work I do with clients is they are here wherever they are. And typically they're trying to make the next decision. but they haven't really thought about, well, what's the end game? Where is it the next destination that I want to get to? And that is going to influence what that next step is going to be, And so if you're only thinking of the next step, and while that has value in making decisions, sometimes it doesn't give you the full picture and actually takes you in a different direction than where you ultimately would want to go if you had truly considered what that end game might look like.
One of the other things I noticed, Tom, is that we tend to make decisions as if they're permanent. For instance, if I choose to leave a full-time job and start my path to entrepreneurship, that doesn't mean I have to do it for the next 50 years. I could always take a full-time job. I could take a part-time job. I could take a part-time job and still run my business. There are a whole bunch of options that I think we tend to want to go, it's all yes or all no. And there are degrees of it. I was listening to Chris Moncamo perform yesterday afternoon. He had a Facebook concert, and he was talking about the different jobs he does. He has a hyper-local news site. He was doing Lyft yesterday because no one else was doing Lyft, and he was having a great day. He was performing his music for tips. He does a lot of different things. And in that, he cobbles together what he wants. And lots of people would say, well, I don't want to do 5 different jobs. It works for him. And what I like about that is it gives you a different extreme. Because I think for a lot of us, when we talk about careers, it's either I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. And he gives that alternative. And I think the more we can see the full breadth, like you said, stepping back, the better off we are. But it is hard to do when you're the person making those decisions. I am always amazed at how many times someone will give me a piece of information that's like so obvious once they say it to me. But I wrestled with the thought for, the whole idea for weeks. And then suddenly I explained to someone, they're like, what about this? What do you mean? Just like yesterday, with my plumbing.
Right.
Fix it myself or get a professional. There wasn't a middle step. And I'm a reasonably intelligent guy. And I think I have a fairly good perspective on most things. But I'm blind to the things when I'm in that moment. And when we're in the throes of making a decision, I think that's unfortunately when we're the least qualified to make a decision.
Well, I think we're the most qualified to make the decision. I might.
Okay, qualified is not the right word. Sorry, wrong adjective. Qualified we are, but
I don't
capable.
think we're the right person to see the perspective.
Right.
We have to make the decision. It's our decision to make. I think what we are so focused on that decision that we don't necessarily see what are the implications that might come down the road. And I think that's the biggest challenge is we like you said, we think that this decision is the end all be all decision. When in reality, it's just the next decision before the next decision and the next decision, and the next decision to ultimately get to where you want to go. And how smooth or rough that journey is, yes, may depend on each decision, but ultimately it's going to be on a multitude of decisions. I clearly remember, when I was trying to figure out my next steps the last time, and I was like, okay, I could stay in higher ed, I could go to a nonprofit organization, or I could try to do something on my own. And I knew that doing something on my own, I thought, well, I don't have to do it all out. And somebody shared that with me. It's like, look, you don't have to say, oh, yes, I'm going to start my own business. That's the only thing I'm going to do. You could go and take a part-time job and try to figure this out while you're doing it and see, is this, 1, do you like it? 2, can you make a living at it? 3, what do you want to do with it? And what I found was that there were multiple things I like. And so the opportunity was to develop what it looked like that I wanted to look like. I had someone say, what would you like it to be? And I said, you know what? I love officiating. I like that. I'd like the assigning that I do for some tournaments at a couple times during the year. And I really enjoy what I do now. So they're like, well, why don't you figure out how to put that all together? And I don't think that if I on my own was trying to figure that out, I'm not sure I could have come up with that solution. I would have been stuck with, I knew I had three, but in reality, there were many, many more than just the three. And I think that's the challenge, is that when we're only focused on the next step, we don't see how it's going to impact, or that next decision, how it's going to ultimately impact where we're going to go and where we want to be in the end.
I couldn't agree more, Tom. I'm sorry. While you were talking, I was putting a poll in our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. I had a great idea, and I just wrote it while we were speaking. It says, so if you haven't joined the Ring of Renegades, you should. What most often gets in the way of you making a decision? I'm curious to hear what people have to say. So just trying to engage people and learn what's going on. I want to throw some comments in here, Tom. Tim says, making a decision is not Make a decision to not make a decision. That's what you said, Tom. Decisions will happen whether we want them to or not. Even if we attempt to delay making a decision, that in and of itself is a decision. So true.
Yes.
Wally's with us this morning. Morning, fellas. Keep dropping mad knowledge. I love that. That excited me. That got me. That's one of my favorite comments of all time. Mad knowledge.
Wally's a good guy. He just started his own I don't know if it's a podcast or not. He's doing some Facebook Live stuff, which is great.
Oh, nice. I'll have to look for that. And Dave says, get inside your head too much to make you not see the whole situation. Yes, that's what happens. We tend to want to spend more time inside our heads than out in the real world, I think. And that can really make it harder to make a decision. So Tom,
we live with it all the time, right? We live with it all the time. It's always there. And usually if it's a decision that we think is big, we think about it nonstop until we're able to finally make it. And usually then, which we'll talk about later in the week, we have to live with whatever decision we made.
Right. Tom, were we always getting people's pictures, like if their icon or whatever, were they always showing up? I never noticed it until this morning.
Yeah. They have to, it's that whole thing. If you get your name, you get your picture.
Oh, okay. If you tell StreamYard that we can use you, I gotcha. I'm with you. Okay. So Tom, as we wrap up today, we've been talking about decisions, making decisions. What's your one tip, your today's antidote for today?
I guess mine would be, as you consider your decision that you want to make, think about the longer term goal. If you're only worried about this decision, I think sometimes we make them, again, without all the information. And it's about, how do I just solve this one thing in the moment? Which, if you know where you're wanting to go, solving that first step is critical. If you're not clear on where you want to be at the end, the first step, yes, it's important. And it might not be leading you down the right path. If ultimately your decision is, I want to be the head of an organization. Okay. So in your decision at the moment is I'm in a job that I'm progressing with, but I'm not sure I really like. Or I can go out and look for another opportunity. And so while you may not like that job, that may or may not be enough to say I should leave. The question is where do you want to be at the end? If you're progressing along and having success, you may ultimately get to the point where you're heading the company or the team or, the department, and now you enjoy the job at a different level. You leave and go to another organization, now you're starting back all over again, maybe. And so I think that if you're only thinking about as you make your decision, that first thing, we sometimes will miss. And then it'll take us in a direction that won't get us to where we ultimately want to be in the bigger picture.
I'm going to offer a little different tip or today's antidote this morning. One of the things I've learned to do in my own decision making is when I can't figure out what to do, I try to explain it to myself like I was 10 years old. And it's amazing when I do that how much the distractions go out, because to a 10-year-old, they're not thinking about mortgage rates. They're not thinking about implications on car payments and all that. It becomes super simple. And when I explain to myself things like that in that very simple way, the decision usually emerges pretty quickly. It's like, oh yeah, that's what why was I obsessing about this again? What was my problem? And
Well,
so that's one way. Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's one of the things I think about young kids is they'll ask questions that'll be like, well, which is more fun? Or, things that you'll be like, had I really thought about, was that going to be more fun?
Right.
And I think they break it down to the simple level, the basic level. And I think, ultimately that's what a good friend, mentor, or coach will also do. For somebody who really cares about you, they'll ask you that question like, all right, which do you enjoy more?
Right.
Which is going to give you a chance to do what you want to do, to have more freedom. Very simple, basic questions that allow us to not give yes or no answers, but have to now I got to think just a little bit about, I hadn't thought about which was going to be more fun, or which was going to be, not allow me to watch my favorite cartoon, which is what the kid would be like as well.
Right.
Can I take time off at 10 a.m. to watch? I don't even know what the latest, greatest.
Well, they're asking emotion questions, right?
Right. Yeah.
And we tend to want to evaluate things on hard facts, right? I at least I do. What's the implications of this on my taxes? What does this mean in terms of working 9 to 5? What does this mean about car payments and mileage and all those silly things and career hopping? Whereas, I think when you get a child involved and it's like, which one's more fun? Who do you have better friends at?
Right. Right.
Do you get to meet anyone famous? The important stuff. And it's funny because we were pretty serious through this discussion until we started talking about the kids angle. Now we're both smiling and laughing and having a good time. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe simplifying it to that level and also making sure that the emotions get into it. Because I think when I process decisions and really think about what gives me emotional satisfaction, the decision becomes much easier.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's more true to what's real for you. Right. You start to get into that. You get out of what's real for everybody else, and you start to get into what is real for you, which is really the only thing you can control.
Yep. So Tom, go ahead.
I was going to say, with that, folks, thanks for joining us today. If you have one thing that you'd like to share about how you make decisions and the things that you find valuable, please feel free to share it in the comments, because I know it will benefit others who are out there trying to figure it out, trying to understand all the different possible scenarios and what do they want to be and how does this step help take them towards where they want to be. Please feel free to put it in the comments, or you can share it in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. And if you're not yet a member, you won't be able to take the poll that Bob just put up or share those thoughts. So please join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It's easy to do. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and ask to join. It is a private group because we are creating a space where people can share those things, ask those questions, and not be afraid that somebody is going to judge, that they're just going to be there to provide feedback and what's real for them, to help us make decisions along our own unique pathway to success. So we hope to see you inside of there. If not, we will see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. And here's the thing that I'll share is that if you are struggling with that idea of looking forward, of thinking of where do I really want to be? And you might want to be a part of our core group who is really taking those next steps, not just focused on the immediate decision. While important, they're really thinking about where do I want to be in this week, this quarter, this day, and how do I take the next step to get me closer to that end goal, not just make the decision that's in front of me. You can join us in our Renegade Success Network, and here is some further information about that. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. We will see you soon. Are you struggling to make your vision a reality? Are you stuck and don't know what to do next? Are fear and doubt holding you back?
The Renegade Success Network will help you determine the next steps on your pathway. Here is some of what you will get. Create your pathway call to start you on a better path. Unlimited laser solution sessions to keep you from getting stuck. Nurture your network events to build your network with other successful leaders. Monthly Renegade challenges to prepare you for what lies ahead. The Renegade Success Vault, giving you access to videos, tools, and tips on specific topics anytime you need them. And the Renegade Success Network community, an exclusive Facebook group of like-minded renegades, all working towards achieving their goals. You have a choice. Do it yourself and fumble forward slowly and alone. Or join the Renegade Success Network and be part of a community built to help you find your own pathway. Join today at renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Act now and jumpstart your journey on your own pathway to success.